Today on the Nerdy Gritty, the horror genre, our favorites and why.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Nerdy Gritty, where we delve deep into the details of pop culture. I'm Dez.
And I'm Fox.
So, with Avengers 4 coming quickly, there has been so much news about it. This has been the most, compared to wherever, it's going to be just a few months.
I know, but I want it now.
Compared to any other movie that I can think of in history, this could be the most anticipated movie in history.
I mean, that's kind of the deal with every new like Marvel movie. Not every. Okay, Ant-Man and the Wasp was like whatever, and then I saw it and I was like, whatever.
Well, even then, like a new Captain America or a new mainline movie, there's probably been some other bigger movies.
Civil War, I don't know. I think Civil War was on par with a new Avengers.
That's probably true, yeah.
Because it basically was.
But Avengers
every single
4,
character.
whatever's going to be...
Yeah, it's going to take over the world.
Maybe Avengers Annihilation. That's one of the thoughts of what it's going to be
I don't
called.
think any of the proposed favorites are going to be right.
But with that happening, it's been in the news quite a bit.
Yes.
With all kinds of different... The Russo brothers sending out weird images. Yes.
Vague tweeting.
But my favorite is a quote from today, which I think is just wonderful.
I haven't seen this.
This may not have much meat on a long intro conversation, but man,
it's okay.
Kevin Smith has had a lot to say.
He always does, and he's annoying.
So one of the things was that he thinks
filmmaker.
that the one that looks like a bright light, that a lot of people think it's like a pulse cannon or whatever. That is, he's like, oh, it's just a tail light, and it's like a tail light saying, like a brake light saying, we're done, like it's over, it's a brake light, whatever, right? But yesterday, an article came out with an interview with him, and it was saying that he's like, yeah, I'm so excited to see this movie. Like my grandma had her stories. These are my stories. Like this is my Young and the Restless. He's like, if somebody came to me and said, you could never make movies again and see Avengers 4 or continue your movie making career and never see Avengers 4. He's like, oh no, I'm going to watch Avengers 4.
Ooh, I hope somebody says that to him then, because I don't want him to make movies anymore.
So the quote of the article is, Kevin Smith says he'd rather watch Avengers 4 than make more movies. And my very first thought was, I'd rather watch Avengers 4 than have Kevin Smith make movies too. I'd rather lose some toenails than have Kevin Smith make more movies.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that I'd rather have happen than make more movies. You kind of set yourself up for this, Kevin.
Yep.
I'm sure he's listening to our podcast.
What a hit.
Now. Oh, gosh. What was the one, like, Cop Out?
Oh,
Cop Out with Bruce
Willis. That's just
a
joke movie. It's like one of those fake trailers you see in, like, a comedy movie or something. I just remember Bruce Willis being like, this guy's an idiot. Yeah, like, the whole time.
Wow.
Like, why did he do that?
And Kevin Smith is like, Bruce Willis is just a jerk and he just didn't want to hang out with him. And I'm like, you're literally the only person that's ever complained about Bruce Willis on a set.
Yep.
Well, Fox, what have you been up to, man?
Soul Calibur 6.
Yeah.
Sorry, Soul Calibur 6. That's how they say it at the beginning of the game. Like, man, in the menu.
The general voiceover of that game is really,
for the most part,
is a low bar for me.
The only person that has been consistently good is Geralt, because it's the same voice actor as always, and he knows the character. Mm-hmm. He's been that character for 12 years now.
Well, and I'm guessing that he's a voice actor as compared to, I bet they got
instead of some dude with a voice. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, that's not really the point though. The fighting is great. It's a really fun game. I've picked it up pretty well. I've done decent on online play.
Nice.
I don't know. Probably I've won less than I've lost.
Which is still decent on play for casual.
Yeah.
Like online play, you don't even go there unless you're... Like,
I just wanted to dip my toe in, and there's some trophies I want to pick up. But so it's been really fun. I really appreciate how much single player content there is. That's really what they focused on.
So I've been watching, you put up a video or two about, the storylines and whatnot.
Yes.
And I'm watching, man, and just the single player story stuff to me was really, really poor.
It's bad.
Yeah.
So how they do it is it's called Soul Chronicle, and it's one overarching story, basically. Well, I mean, that's what they say.
That's their like main story is Soul Chronicle.
It's 20 chapters long. That's the long one. That's the one I put up.
Right.
And then there's individual stories that kind of show how each person interact with that story a little bit, or at least how Soul Edge has impacted them a little bit. And it's not good. It should have been way better.
Yeah.
I don't understand. So, like, for example, the main story, there are 3 main characters. Throughout this hour and a half long thing, it should be longer. There should be, like, most of the characters should be part of this. Right. If Soul Edge is, like, affecting so many people, how come only 3 of them are really, like, there's some antagonists, of course. There's, like, 4 main antagonists in the game. But then other things, like I've done Mitsurugi and Geralt's storylines, and Geralt at the end fights Mitsurugi, like toward the end of his thing, fights Mitsurugi, and he says like, "Oh, this guy again, he's following me around," or something like that. And I'm like, "Oh, cool," because I hadn't fought him before that, and I thought maybe in Mitsurugi's storyline it would show like you play as Mitsurugi fighting Geralt. And nope.
So it's just saying this guy's following me around just comes from nowhere.
It doesn't make any sense. And that happens a couple times. And most of the people you fight are just like rando, like generated ones that aren't actual main characters.
I noticed that too.
It's very disappointing, but there is a lot of content in there. Plus Libra of Souls, which is the other main like single player. That's way bigger and way more interesting. You can like. It's a little more RPG-ish, some leeway actually.
With fighting games because that's just single player experiences aren't the purpose of fighting games.
Yeah, that's why I don't play most of them.
But at that point, you have to tip your hat even more to Dragon Ball FighterZ and Injustice, who both have pretty like Dragon Ball FighterZ story didn't really make sense.
It has a lot of filler, but
fully animated.
It's there, they put the effort into it.
And then Injustice is just
Injustice
incredible.
is king of the hill for sure.
And so to deliver a game that is also, and Injustice has RPG elements and all kinds of other stuff too. Like you can level up your characters and things like that.
Yeah, you do that in Soul Calibur 6.
Oh, can you really?
So Libra of Souls, you make a custom character, and then you can you level it up, and that's kind of cool. You can get you have a weapon fighting style. But then you can like change out your weapons, and there can be boosts or buffs or like just cosmetic changes, things like that. So yeah, I've really appreciated the game, but it's pretty bad story. Like it doesn't make any sense, and also like you texted me while watching it. There are fights that happen in the story that you just see like most like the cutscenes are vast majority are just portraits of the characters with
text and
I really appreciate that there is voiceover.
Yes.
Because that's not in Libra of Souls, and it's real boring and dry. But it's also much bigger, so it's taking long. Anyway, and like they fight, and it's just like you hear sound effects, and like the portraits will shake a little bit. And it's like, why? This is a fighting game. Why am I not fighting? Why is this? You should be cramming as many fights as you can into this.
Yes, absolutely.
But yeah, overall, I've really enjoyed it. It has its flaws, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, to me, that would be, and to be fair, I'm not much of a fighting game guy, but like the extent that you and I have played, and I'd probably play with you some more, but other than that, I have zero interest in Soul Calibur 6 now.
Yeah, the most fun we had was commentating on CPU versus CPU battles, and that was awesome.
Which just came out this past weekend. When you're listening to this, all 3 of those episodes will have just come out this past weekend. So go watch those.
Go watch those. It's great.
I finally figured out why I am struggling with Spider-Man.
Okay.
I think I finally put my finger on the exact reason.
All the combat options and lots of button combos and stuff.
I mean, there are a lot of different things, but then it comes down to like one central thing that frustrates me about Spider-Man. It does such a good job of making you feel like Spider-Man. It does.
We finally said it.
Right.
Every single review said that. That's the joke.
But like, and that's a joke because it's so true though.
Right.
Like you say, it's this incredible job with it.
It gives you a real good feeling.
And then it takes it away sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally.
It just takes it away sometimes. But like, for example, there was a time that I was trying to get a backpack. And the backpack was around the corner of a building.
Yep.
On like a little buttress. You know what I mean? And I was wall crawling and I got to the corner and I couldn't crawl around the corner.
Yeah.
You
have to specifically run and swing around the corner.
I swung around the corner and I came back and I landed and I went up. but I couldn't crawl up on the buttress.
Yep.
And so I had to come and I'm like, you're Spider-Man. I promise you can climb around corners.
You can do this.
I know you can do this.
Just web the backpack, grab it.
Right. There's so many things. Or like I talked about this before, when you're fighting Mr. Negative, there are times when he's on the subway train that he's throwing things at you, and you have to jump against the wall to dodge it. And I lost the first 2 times because I kept expecting myself to stick to the wall.
Right.
They don't let you.
Like
Spider-Man would do, exactly. But they don't let you. You stick for a half second, and then they force you to come back to the middle.
Yeah, it's basically a glorified QTE.
Yeah. Yeah, and so there are just some times in which the mechanics, and then same thing with like in combat, there's just, and I think this is more me than anything.
Sure.
I struggle with the amount of button combinations, things like that, and that pulls me out of the immersion.
Yeah, because I've actually really enjoyed.
Right. And so I totally admit that might just be me.
Sure, that could be a preference.
Yeah, a preference thing, but the other two were just, they give you these such cool spider powers and then just pull them right out from underneath you from time to time.
Yeah, it's very occasional though.
Yeah, it's really occasional, and like it's me nitpicking Spider-Man. Yeah, the game is that's phenomenal.
Fair. You can nitpick when a game's so great. Nothing's perfect. Nothing is perfect, and if you gotta nitpick sometimes. That's a compliment for the game.
Absolutely.
I have to find this tiny thing I don't like, because it's amazing.
There are close to perfect games, and one of them is Silent Hill 2.
Okay. I have never played Silent Hill 2, but I have heard lots about it.
Oh man, and
I never will play it because
you probably what could help. Okay, let's get into that.
Yeah,
so
let's
get down to the nerdy gritty.
Down to the nerdy gritty.
So, we're talking about horror today.
Yep.
And this, just as a genre, is massive. We could talk for days.
It has grown. Video game wise, grown huge.
Yeah.
Like the whole survival horror thing is big now.
And it's funny because it's got like this reverse bell curve, like this valley curve where it was horror and then like survival horror, and then it dips into just like survival action, horror,
especially like Resident Evil.
And then it's funny because a lot of the survival horror just seems to follow Resident Evil
a little bit.
Yeah, and so it dips down there, and then you get a lot of the zombie shooting games and whatever, and then Resident Evil 7 really helped it hook back up, and VR really helped it hook back up.
VR does help, yeah.
And so we get a lot more of these atmospheric games, indie games like Amnesia really helped it hook back up.
Yeah, that was a huge one.
And now we are in a horror renaissance right now.
A pretty good time if you're into the scares.
Right. And so it's really cool. I really enjoy watching people play horror games.
I do not.
Yeah. You're not. You like to be in control.
I like to be in control, but also I just don't really like horror in general. I just kind of stay away from video game wise. Yeah, but we're not just talking about video games today.
No, we're not.
We want to talk about the concept of horror, or at least the genre of horror.
And
be movies or video games or whatever else, I guess.
And what are some of our favorite like artistic presentations, movie or examples of it, and why are those so good to us? We also understand that horror is going to be different for some people. Yeah, like what scares one person is absolutely not going to scare somebody else.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to kick us off with something like that. A very divisive movie, I think, in the horror genre. The very first Paranormal Activity.
Right.
I would say most of the people I've ever talked to about that just found it to be real stupid.
Really? Because most people I talk to about it find it to be horrific.
Really?
Just absolutely terrifying.
That movie got to me.
Yeah.
In more than just whoa, crazy, that was scary. Like, that stuck with me. There are tiny things in that movie that stick with me, but I found that is one of the most horrifying movies I have ever seen.
Okay, because I want to there are so many tangents.
So many things we could talk about.
Let's just try and go. Why Paranormal Activity?
Paranormal Activity is very personal because it is implied, at least, that it is a demonic presence.
Right.
I personally have a belief in the spiritual realm. Right. Demons exist, and so to me, that's not entirely out of the question of happening. I have issues with the logic behind that. That's the whole thing I talk about, but it is a possibility to me.
It's based in reality for
me, yes.
us.
And not everybody believes that, but it is for me, as well as one thing that I think is very good for horror. Not always, of course, there's nothing that's black and white about it. It could always be different, but it's how mundane it is. How much like real life the movie Paranormal Activity is.
I mean, like in Darkwood, you said the thing that got you the most that first round was just the knocking on the door.
Well, yeah, just that simplicity.
Mundane stuff.
But just like Paranormal Activity, if you haven't seen it, is one of the first movies that really kicked off the huge handheld camera or
found footage.
Blair Witch
was actually the first, but
that was the first big one. This one
Paranormal
kind of
Activity mainstream
made it like a
thing.
Interest, people were interested in. Also, it's very financially you don't pay a lot for those movies. But it's basically just a man and a woman have moved into this house. And they have like security cameras in their home, or or it's mostly through his handheld camcorder, I think, the guy. But essentially, there's supposed to be a demonic presence in this house.
Don't they have a kid?
No.
Okay.
In one of the 16,000 sequels, there's children, but this one it's just those two, and pretty much, just kind of like any kind of creepy monster in a house, creepy ghost in a house. It kind of ramps up, things happen,
right?
But for a good long while. The scares, which it's funny to call those that because compared to a lot of movies, these are not scares, are so mundane. They come downstairs in the morning and the car keys are on the floor instead of on the counter where they left them. Or they come downstairs in the morning, or at one point you just hear like a thud. And then they come downstairs and the chandelier in the kitchen is just kind of shaking back and forth. Just tiny things like that. Or at one point later in the movie, the husband finds the wife middle of the night, just basically sitting on the swing outside, like they have like a swinging chair, just sitting there and just staring ahead and like not responding, but just kind of standing there. Or, things like that where they're not like, look at this giant monster, or even jump scares or creepy, like really creepy things like chair spun around in the air or what, things like that. Just little mundane things.
And you know why those mundane things are so scary, I think? And because I agree with you on that. Yeah. Those mundane things to me. So I was talking to some of my students who really like scary movies, and they watched a movie that I love called The Others, which I'm going to talk about later.
Sure.
And they said they hated it. It was real dumb. Oh man, it was never scary to me. And I was like, okay, but you love like The Nun. And that's... Movies like
that
The
Nun
to me,
has been hilarious. Like, the trailer is hilarious.
Movies like that to me are dumb. And I think what it really comes down to is, like, some people, they think of scary as just jump scares.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't have any jump scares, then whatever. See, I'm the opposite. I like
your expectations do play into it. Yeah.
And so, to me, if there's like a spinning chair and a big monster, I know that I'm not going to walk downstairs and chairs aren't going to be spinning and no monsters are going to be there. But you know what's absolutely possible? That I'm going to finish watching that movie, and then just for some random reason, I'm going to walk up my stairs, and the chandelier that's hanging just above my stairwell is going to be slowly swinging back and forth. Right,
it could be for maybe somebody opened a window, or, your wife had walked past and was holding something. And it just bumped against it. Yeah. But now that's scary to you.
That's a real thing that I can absolutely see. I'm not going to walk upstairs and the nun's going to be there. That's not going to happen. But what could happen is I'm going to walk upstairs and my car keys are going to be on the floor.
Sure, absolutely.
And I'm going to be like, oh.
There's a million reasons. Your kids could have just
absolutely
knocked it off the thing or, whatever. Like, those are very subtle ways to get inside your brain.
And I love it.
That's good horror to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Good horror to me is what, stays with you.
Yes.
And like one that, because you immerse yourself in fiction, and that's why they call the disbelief. What is it?
Suspension of
belief. There it is.
Yeah.
Suspension of belief. Of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief. And
not that belief.
Disbelief. And so you're watching some fiction or reading some fiction and you're allowing yourself to believe in it. If that can carry on with you past whatever you were doing at that point, if there's still part of you that believes this could be real as you're trying to go to bed that night, success. Really good success.
100%. That has happened to me recently.
That's why, to me, Silent Hill 2 is such a good game. So, to kind of come back around, by the way, you said you couldn't play it, which there are some definitely creepy things in there, but Silent Hill 2, like all Silent Hills, has some options of making it all like resolve much more silly.
Oh, I know. I've seen the secret dog ending.
Yeah, there's a secret dog ending.
There's a dog controlling the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's your childhood dog, and he was behind it all.
Oh, you got me.
Yeah, and like you're so happy to see him. It's like, oh, it was you the whole time. Come here, boy.
Classic.
But Silent Hill 2 is actually this deeply psychological game.
Yeah.
And so big spoilers for Silent Hill 2 here. I'm literally going to tell you everything.
Sure.
So you have a wife that had a terminal illness and she passed away. And then years later, you get a letter from her saying, hey, meet me in Silent Hill. And you're like, ooh, creepy. And so you go there and you find out like all these weird things going on, and then you meet a woman who looks just like her.
Sure.
But she's like a little more, I mean, just to put it bluntly, trampy. You know, she wears like short leopard skin skirt, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Well, you get to the end of the game, and at the end of the game, the big reveal is your wife was terminally ill, and so you euthanized her.
Oh.
And depending on how you acted throughout the game toward that woman, toward the letters to your wife, towards like the way that you search different areas, you'll get one of two endings. One either saying like your wife being like, how could you, how dare you, or saying, no, really, thank you. Like I was in so much pain and you actually did me a favor. But all of this is your guilt. And Silent Hill 2, what it does is it takes all of this guilt and it actually portrays it in the game. So there are monsters that are just pairs of legs, like female legs down and upward.
Right.
And it's just like the female anatomy, sexual organs just presented right there. There are these horrific nurses, but they're real sexy as well.
Yeah, a combination of creepy.
Yeah, and there are a lot of images like that. And then again, this is your wife, but the trampy wife, the wife. So it's all like trying to like get into your brain, and you as a player all of a sudden have to realize like, how do I visualize my desires in life?
Right.
How am I? And then it kind of sticks with you afterward. And there are times that like I see these like you know, I've taken like sexual harassment classes and things like that, and I like as somebody who
you're really good at sexual harassment now. You took a class on it.
Anyway, as somebody who teaches minors, I've had to do a lot of training in this area.
What
and
kind?
I've had
Like
to
coal miners or
hear about pedophilia and things like that.
Good
and
call.
like all of these things unsettle me, and it reminds me of Silent Hill in this way that like desire just gets in people's way.
Yeah.
These horrific things to people. And again, although there are monsters in this game, what sticks with you about it is this guy's real life desire and like how much that twisted him. And it is just, again, it's one of those things that even outside of the fiction, it kind of sticks with you.
Yeah.
And is eerie in that way.
Yeah. I want to talk about another aspect of horror. Stephen King, I think it was Stephen King, talked about how I forget exactly the quote. I should have looked this up, but his methodology essentially was first he'll go for like the real scare, like the stick with you horror.
Boo.
And after, yeah, right. Or, you know, not even like the boo, but like the real creepy psychological. But if it's not working, he'll go for a gross out. Or he'll go, you know, because horror, a lot of people don't really understand, I think, goes beyond fear, like straight up fear of something scary. You know, horror, I think, can be more generally should be more generally concerned with the things that we do not want to address. Fear of death, fear of public speaking, all these things. Like fear of public speaking is not the same as fear of death or fear of being, you know, attacked in the middle of the night, somebody creeping on you. You know, obviously but both unsettle you to a certain extent. And a lot of that, there's a big genre, I don't know about genre, but just a thing in a lot of horror movies called body horror, in which it basically takes the human body and makes it a creepy thing.
Yes.
Or just even realistic. So all this is to say, I've talked about this before, but Gerald's Game, movie I watched.
Oh yeah, you can talk about it.
I don't know if I've talked about Gerald's Game. Yeah, I did. I absolutely did. I talked about it last week. Gerald's Game is mostly a movie about, well, there's a lot of aspects to it. I'm going to spoil that as well right now.
Okay.
Just so you know, Gerald's Game, it's a Netflix movie. I highly recommend you like pause, go watch it and come back. But it is a movie that, yes, has some creepy images, things like somebody's in your house right now and you didn't notice him before, and now he's just standing there in the corner. Very creepy. He's not doing anything. He's just standing there. Very creepy. But it also talks about the main character. I forget her name. But her history with her dad that she's kind of suppressed. And how he did not rape her. Did not even molest her. But very sexually inappropriate around her.
Okay.
And basically then convinced her that it's, a bad idea to tell anybody. Because,
by the way, that's abuse.
Right. Obviously, yes, it is abuse. I'm not saying it wasn't rape or molesting.
Right. I know you know that, but...
Yes, it was still abuse. Yes, I'm not trying to lessen it. I'm just saying things that he did were, And then he convinced her that, obviously her life, she would be embarrassed or that everybody would look at her a different way. And it convinced her it's her fault, essentially. Terrible. Also very horrific. Because it's something that, while we talk about it a lot in modern culture about Me Too, you need to be able to talk about this. It's not something that is easy to confront. It's something that we don't like to address. It's not fun. It's horrific. As well as in that movie, there's so many different elements to it. That's why it's so good. I'm spoiling basically the ending here, a big part of the ending. When she gets loose. The concept, if you don't remember from last week or if you didn't listen, which I doubt anybody hasn't listened. Everybody listens to every episode we make. Of course. She basically is handcuffed to a bed in a house in the middle of nowhere and has to survive. That's the core idea. Talking about this now. Yeah. It's the core idea. She went there with her husband. He did that, and then he had a heart attack and died, and now she has to survive. She eventually, through really well-told story and
hang on, was this like a consensual handcuffing?
100%. Yeah, they went there to reinvigorate their marriage and kind of spice things up, and he handcuffed her, and then it became in another way uncomfortable. All these kind of really good things. She basically realizes that, there's a glass of water. So she was able to get that really good tense scene of just getting a glass of water to not fall off of a shelf above her. Really good. But then she realizes that's how I have to get out. Break this glass and cut my wrist so that the blood makes it slick enough that I can pull my hand through the cup. Jeez. Yes. Yeah, that's horrific to talk about. She does it, and when she pulls her hand through the cuff, it does not slide out easily. There is something called degloving.
Yep.
And I am fine with gore. I'm pretty okay with it. In fact, there are movies that are super gory that I love, or that are hilariously gory, which is a weird thing to say.
Yes.
This was not that.
Yeah.
I physically had to look away. It her skin is being pulled off of her hand. It is disgusting. I know I'm talking about it and you hate it. You're having a visible visceral reaction. And it was such good horror. I can watch creepy movies. Most of the time I have to continue watching so that I can get through it. This I had to stop watching.
Yeah.
And that is good horror, I think, because it was not over the top. It wasn't it was very realistic. It was something that we don't like to confront.
Yeah.
And just the physical anatomy and pain are things that we are all, to a certain point, mostly pain, afraid of. And it was horrific.
Yeah.
It was bad. Really good movie. Watch it.
That's what, the first Saw movie actually brought some of that, along with just some, challenging of you confronting your own sins. A
little bit,
that. Unfortunately, it was a really... new type of movie.
It was an interesting movie. Yes,
it was poorly acted. Unfortunately, it was lower budget.
True story. Did you know that the actual movie, the filming was the actors thought that was rehearsal?
No, which one?
What?
Which actor?
All of them. At least the bathroom scenes, which is most of the movie.
Terry Ewells?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
It actually they were rehearsing. And they were getting blocking down and filming, all that. And then that was it.
No, this is good enough, guys.
It was save money.
Man, that's crazy.
To not have to take double the amount of time to film it.
Yeah.
It filmed in 30 days. They did it in chronological order.
30 days?
Yep. Yep.
Chronological order?
At least the bathroom scenes. Yes.
That's crazy.
Chronological order.
I had no
Yeah, crazy.
idea.
It's not how movies are done. Obviously, it was successful because there's now 400 Saw movies. But
right.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
But it did the same type of thing where it was mostly somebody confronting you with pain.
Yes.
Like, and I still vividly remember the end of the movie. This is why they're called Saw, by the way. The end of the
Yep.
movie, it's just there's a guy and he's chained up and there's a saw in the room.
Yep.
And he can saw his foot off and get out.
You
if he
know
wants.
from the beginning of the movie that's essentially what's going to happen.
Right.
What the Jigsaw, the killer, wants to happen. But the whole time you're like, okay, get out there a different way because I don't want this.
Right.
To
Yeah. Like, come on. And just there's so much tension through the entirety of the
Yes,
movie for
yeah.
it, and it's really good.
Yeah,
for that.
it's good in a certain way. I think a big part of its horror, like you said, is A, confronting your sins, the things you've done,
right.
and B, just answering that question: do I deserve to live?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I be forgiven? I think that's a big am I gone from where and it just gets more and more ridiculous. I've seen 4 or 5 of the Saw movies, and they just get more and more gory and
right.
Yeah,
and it just becomes gore.
They
fest.
become torture porn more so
Yeah.
than the first one. But yeah, I think they address that idea fairly well to a certain extent. There are a lot of horror movies I could bring up and talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other like?
Well, I want to talk about
games?
the others real quick.
Okay, yeah,
the
please
others
do.
specifically
Please do.
because
There's one more that I really want to talk about.
another thing that I think on the total flip side of gore is the indirect. So where gore is the direct and fear of pain is the direct, it's the unknown and the indirect things that I think are really, really scary sometimes. It's when somebody walks into a dark room and they're just like, the music is just the slowly dragging of a bow across a violin, just a single note,
Classic.
like, and then like that tension build lasts for like 20 seconds. And then they turn the lights on and it's fine.
Yep.
And like things like that. And the others does this so well, where it's this slow build throughout the entire movie was so much. And it does have a lot of, like you're talking about, the subtlety of things where like a door is open and they turn around, the door is closed. Or there's one particular scene where a girl's like, yeah, this house is haunted, and her brother's like, no, it's not, stop making jokes. And they're trying to go to bed that night, and she opens up the window and then she goes back to bed, and then you just hear dum, 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 whoosh, and the window gets closed again, the blinds on the window. And then the little girl's like, stop that, like she's arguing with the quote unquote ghost or whatever it's supposed to be. And the little boy's like, you're pretending you're making all this up, and it's like just this whole scene of just tension, and you understand this little boy because it's all like in frame, it's just the little boy and his fear on his face, and you just see little things going on in the background, but it could be the girl just making things up, it could be a ghost, you don't actually know. And it's that fear of the unknown and that tension that's built and not really released. And so that's what the others does really well, is like it does small turns, like increasing that tension, but it doesn't really release it at any point.
Yeah.
It just builds it so slowly. You don't realize by the end of the movie, you're ready to snap.
Yeah.
And it's a great ending. By the way, like one of the best twist endings I've ever seen in my life. So good.
You hit on a really big thing there, I think. Fear of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I would say, the basis of, if not all fear,
the majority of
it.
Yeah.
Not even just in media, but just fear. Like, we don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
We're afraid.
I mean, the fear of pain is, we know exactly what that is.
Or possibly, yes. Obviously, it's not a one, but like fear of spiders. Is there a spider? Is it going to hurt me?
Exactly, yeah.
Is it, that kind of thing. And most movies, like monster movies, if you want to be afraid of a monster in a movie, hide it from your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Wait. Let them imagine something scarier than you could ever make. If you've watched the original Alien, it's great for a lot of reasons, but it does a very, very good job of waiting for you to see the alien.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's a really good thing to do, that slow reveal, that like you letting you imagine, and also B, go watch Alien again, and when you get those really good shots of it pause it and then look at how terrible it looks. It looks so bad.
That
it's clearly
80s
just a dude like bending over with some like costume stuff, like a rubber costume things on it. They get way better in the sequels, of course.
Of course.
But I'm going to talk about one of my favorite movies of the last 5 years.
All right.
Not even just horror movies. One of my favorite movies. It's called The Witch. The Witch is a movie. It's a period piece. It's set in like the 1600s. Mm-hmm. It's about a religious family who I forget exactly the reason. They get shunned from their village and have to move out of their town. And they settle on the edge of some woods. And it's very accurate to the time. All of the actors, even the little babies, like 3 and 4 year olds, like that can talk, have this like very thick accent and very like, I don't know about old English or whatever, but just that kind of like way of speaking. That's not how we speak today, and you kind of have to like understand what they're saying. You have to put it through that filter,
right?
But I think it takes that idea of fear of the unknown and flips it on its head. So spoilers for this as well. The Witch. Basically, the fear is that there's supposed to be a witch that lives in these woods. Mm-hmm. You find out that absolutely there is in about 15 to 20 minutes into the movie.
Okay.
She does an absolutely vile thing. She steals a baby, the youngest, the just born child of this family. I don't know if you know this, but in witch lore, the way they make their brooms fly is by bathing their broomsticks in the fat of babies.
I did not know that.
You don't see that happen.
That's real witch lore, though?
Yes, yes, wow. Absolutely. It does not explain that. You don't even know that that's happening, but that is what happens. Like, it's not a visceral movie at all. Right. It is 100% atmospheric. But it takes that idea of fear of the unknown, and now you know that's there. Mm-hmm. Now you know exactly this terrifying creature, and honestly, she never comes back in the movie. Like, the witch is like there. The movie does something really well. It basically confronts the fear of am I the monster?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because throughout it, the main girl, who's also really great in it, she at one point like makes a joke like, oh, I'm the witch, I'm gonna eat you up, I'm gonna get, like jokes like that. But it gets ratchet and it gets worse and worse. Things I can't talk about everything because there's a lot to talk about. Black Phillip is a goat in it who's awesome and terrifying. Yeah.
Okay.
Eventually you discover
a little bit racist, but all right.
He's a black goat. Calm down. He's called Black Phillip. He's hilarious. But things happen which cause her to realize or maybe believe that she's the cause of what's happening.
Okay.
At the very end, there's just this really great scene where things have happened. Basically, her whole family is dead. And she's like, man, I can't remember details, but because I don't want to watch it again because it's horrifying.
Right.
But you just hear in the background, wouldst thou like to live deliciously?
Oh, man.
Black Phillip was the devil the whole time.
Oh, my gosh. That's
big spoilers.
Amazing.
You should watch it, though. It's so good because the entire movie is about atmosphere and dread. Not about jump scares, although there's a couple times where you're like, oh, or like, not even, just like, oh, that's creepy, or things like that. But the whole time, it confronts that fear of, wait a minute. I'm the monster. Like, I'm the one in the wrong. I'm the evil one here. And that's a really good fear to address in such a, like, there was a lot of complaints about that movie where, there's a witch. Okay. Aren't you not supposed to tell people that? No, that's not what you fear. You fear yourself. Mm-hmm. Great movie. Those are the main horror things that I have to talk about. Honestly, I don't play a lot of horror games, so I don't have many to talk about. Amnesia was great because it gave you that sense of helplessness, but not a sense of helplessness that felt unearned because the creatures weren't just big people. Like, there's a difference between Amnesia helplessness and Outlast helplessness.
Yes.
Outlast didn't make any sense. Why don't you just, like, hit those guys with baseball bats or,
They There are guys there, and he dropped a knife. Like, that guy was carrying a knife, and then he doesn't have it anymore. Go pick it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I can't go down this hallway because a bookshelf's in the way. Push over the bookshelf, man.
Or the bookshelf is like sideways, like climb over
it. What's wrong?
There's so many ways to get out of this.
So that was bad. Amnesia's version of helplessness and not being able to fight back was the sense that you are going insane and you don't know what's real. And these things are hurting you not physically. And so you can't fight them back. Your brain is hurting now. Like, yeah. So that was great. There's a lot of things that go into horror. But do you have any other?
I do. I specifically want to talk about a game that did horror, some of the best I know, and that I know that you have played because we played it together. Gone Home.
Yeah, man.
Gone Home was a game.
After playing it, I don't even I forget that it's like horror, kind of scary. Yeah.
Gone Home is such a good horror game when it comes to the fear of the unknown.
Yes,
because you begin this game and it's dark and it's rainy, but there are a million games that begin with dark and it's rainy, whether or not. But and then you walk in and it's an empty house and it's kind of a bigger, older house and your footsteps kind of echo.
Right.
And it never at any point does it tell you that it's a horror game.
No.
It's not like...
The plot is that you just got home.
Yeah.
And you're at your house.
You've gone home, right. But just events begin to occur throughout the game. By the way, spoilers for Gone Home.
Yeah.
There are going to be spoilers here. Events begin to occur that are just a little bit creepy.
Kind of.
Yeah. More than anything, you just begin to tell yourself, this is kind of creepy.
Yes. You convinced yourself that something horrifying
and they do little subtle things like at the end of the hall is the attic, and the attic is surrounded by red lights.
Yeah, it's just red light, like red Christmas lights.
Right, and that's it. But you also know that your sister hangs out up there, and she's decorated it that way because she's kind of goth or whatever.
Sure.
You're finding notes from your sister saying things like, I don't want to be here. I don't like this place. Mom and dad are mad at me. All this other stuff. And you're finding other things like it builds such good character. Things go so well, but then all of a sudden, like, the power will go out. Or you're also simultaneously...
In a very specific spot, a light bulb goes out. It's not even the power.
Yeah.
It just breaks when you turn it on. That happens.
And there are... No, it doesn't break when you turn it on. It specifically waits until you're done looking at something.
When you go next to it, yeah. When you're close by it.
So... you're also reading about the history of your own house.
Sure.
And there are some creepy, weird things that have gone on in this house, but it's just the house's history. Anyway, it builds and it builds and it builds. Nothing ever actually happens. It's just this fear of the unknown, all this tension.
There's no monster.
And then the game ends. Again, huge spoilers here. The game ends and you find out that your sister ran away.
Yes. Possibly.
Right.
I don't know if you remember, but...
We ended it a little bit differently.
I played it on my own before we played it. And so I was aware of what... I think I found all the notes.
Right. I think I found all but one.
Possibly. Yeah. And when I played it, I basically found out the full story. She was discovering that she was a lesbian. Her parents didn't approve. And eventually she basically ran away to be with her,
her girlfriend. Yeah.
When we played it, when you played it, you were the one playing.
I didn't find the note that said that her and her girlfriend were running away.
Yes.
I just found a lot of goodbye notes.
Yes.
And that's it.
The very last note is, thank you. You've always been there to support me. I have to go. Please don't look for me.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Goodbye.
Very neutral. Unless, depending on what you've read already, it is a very neutral... You don't come look for me.
Because I didn't find that one note in my playthrough, I fully believe she had committed suicide.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I played, she was fine. She was just doing her own thing.
Ran away with her girlfriend.
She's off, and she doesn't want us to come find her.
But either way, there was zero supernatural things, zero things that in retrospect would be horror or anything like that. But it just builds the unknown and allows you to play in your own mind space and get on your own horror nerves. Right. And it did a really, really good job of that.
Yeah, your imagination will always be scarier than what is actually.
Do you read horror at all?
I don't.
Dang, man,
Here's how pathetic I am. I remember getting really scared at a Goosebumps book.
Which one?
It was like Ghost School or something. Basically haunted high school. And there was always a certain point where the main character was in like a hallway with, like, going to his locker and it was like empty and it was just kind of creeped me out. That it was just like, I'm all alone. Why am I all alone right now? That kind of thing. That creeped me out.
There's the one about the ventriloquist dummy, and that one creeped me out. It did.
Creepy,
yes, absolutely. Anyway, there's a book that I really wish I could remember the name of that I read a while back.
50 Shades of Grey.
And it was terrifying.
All right, 50 Shades Darker.
And it was horrific.
The sequel.
No, I immediately I'm like, oh, is The Happening? And then I looked at it, I'm like, oh no, it's not The Happening.
The Happening is a M. Night Shyamalan
not
movie.
The Happening.
Mark Wahlberg.
And so I can't remember what the name of the book was or who the author was, but here's what it is. These ships come out of space and they start hovering over, and like weird stuff starts happening on Earth. And the main character, this girl, starts like encountering these like dark, scary moments. She looks in the mirror and like other figures will be looking back at her. And like some people were like, it's the end of the world. And like at one point she says, it's really weird that when aliens come, people consider it a supernatural event. And it really is like this invasion event and crazy things are going on, but there's a lot of like unknown horror happening. There is a lot of like people finally band together, and then one by one they start like distrusting each other and like weird and blah blah blah.
Sure.
What I love the most about it is it goes through this whole thing kind of telling you it's sci-fi, it's sci-fi, it's sci-fi.
Okay.
But then things get weirder and weirder and weirder.
So how do we call it the fifth wave?
No.
No? Okay.
Because at the end of the book, the very end of the book, she realizes this was not a sci-fi alien invasion. She remembers her first comment saying it's weird how when aliens come, people think it's a spiritual event. And she's like, maybe it's just weird that when a real spiritual event happens, people want to accredit it to aliens. And she's going in and she's saying this was an invasion of hell on Earth.
Huh.
And when you look back on the entirety of the book, that makes way more sense than aliens.
All right.
And it was an invasion of hell on Earth, and how those who had faith, it wasn't even like a faith-based book. It was just really, really well done.
Gotcha.
Those who had faith were able to kind of band together, and they say like there were the dogs. Dogs were all good because dogs are always the goodest.
Well, yeah, because all dogs go to heaven.
Right. And so dogs were always helping people. And children, for some reason, children were just immune to everything. Children were being protected. And like, so, and then you find out that, and then there were some people with faith that had a stronger, and she, like the beginning of the book, you find out that she used to be devout and lost her faith. And this was kind of like her coming back throughout the whole book.
Gotcha.
But it did the horror really well, where it began like it tossed you, hey, sci-fi, and you catch sci-fi. And then it starts twisting that while it's in your hands. Like while your brain is thinking sci-fi, it twists the genre while it's hot. And it did a really good job of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're running low on time. You're good. We're good. Okay.
I mean, there's a million things I could talk about.
There's so many different things.
I would just be pounding on the same ideas.
I would want to talk about bad horror, like ways that it's done poorly.
Oh, sure.
And ham-handed.
Yeah, watch the movie Truth or Dare.
Things like that. Or any movie that relies exclusively on jump scares.
Sure.
By halfway through the movie, you're like, she's around the corner.
Okay, great. Yeah, when is this over?
Five Nights at Freddy's for me is not a good horror game.
Yeah.
Because halfway through the game, like the tension's been released for me, and I'm like,
okay,
and here comes Freddy. Yep, there he is.
Oh, scary.
No.
Yeah.
You know what? But again, all stuff we can talk about. Let us know what you find to be the scariest things. Just the pieces of movie or book or game or whatever else
music
you just find generally scary. Yeah, Nickelback.
Wow, it's terrifying.
Maybe there is like some sort of genre that we didn't touch on that, like, hey, this actually has a really good horror to it. Like maybe it's a board game like Betrayal at House on the Hill or something like that generally has some creep to you. Whatever it is, go into the comments. Let us know what good horror is for you. Thank you guys for watching. Happy spook. There you go.
Got him.
That was for you guys.
I have gotten so used to doing that.
I know. Yeah. It doesn't scare. I'm not doing it for you anymore. Otherwise, I would do it all the time.
You would.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
I do it for them. And that's Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yep. All right, guys.
We'll see you guys later. Remember, save games, save lives. Bye.